I don't need to tell you about the game Undertale, because if you've been online, you have heard so much about it. From the crazy soundtrack to the compelling character narratives to all of that type of stuff. Undertale, when released in 2015 by Toby Fox, completely broke the internet. It's an indie game that's only rivaled by the likes of Minecraft and Five Nights at Freddy's to be one of those compelling stories, narratives, and games of the 2010s. I'll tell you this, when I was a kid, and I was a wee lad more so than I am now, before I had all this facial hair, I also was very into this game. I would watch people like Markiplier and Jacksepticeye in particular, and the Game Grumps as well, play through this game, particularly in the pacifist run through, and that was really, really awesome. That was one of the first games that made me really excited about the prospect of games being more than just games, being mechanisms to tell stories, have narratives, have compelling character development. And with an 8-bit style that is reminiscent of things like Earthbound and older games like Pokemon that I also absolutely adored, Undertale felt like a dream come true. And it seems as though a lot of people agreed. If you were anywhere on the internet in 2015 to 2016, you would be flooded with something to do with Undertale, even if you didn't recognize it. Inside jokes like Temmie Village, or You're Gonna Have a Bad Time, or really epic fan animations of fight scenes, or just people using the soundtrack in their gaming videos. I even use the soundtrack to Undertale in my videos too, because this game is so good at achieving so many different things. But I want to take a second and sort of rewind back to that time and talk about what was it about Undertale that got the internet so invested and got me and so many other people so in love with this game. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And hey, if you enjoy this type of stuff and you want to see more, please be sure to hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 150 subs by the end of this month, and I know for a fact that we can do that. So if you enjoy this type of stuff, please hit the subscribe button, because hey, I'm not getting any younger, and this game is not getting any younger either. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
So true, other Connor. Man, you are so funny and also talented, and people should definitely subscribe.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. Hey, I didn't see you. So here's the deal, right? I have been very inundated on the entire freaking Undertale community when it comes to all sorts of different things since about 2015. I've read the comic dubs, I've seen fan art, we'll get to that, and I've played the game over and over and over and seen so many other people play it that I just am so engrossed that I cannot have a reasonably unbiased opinion on what I'm talking about here. So here's the deal, right? I was like, hey, my friend Drew, who I care about so dearly, and he said, Connor, you only say that when you want something. What do you want? And I said, please stream Undertale with me on my YouTube channel, because you've never played it, and it would be good content, and it can also help me with this video. And he said, Connor, I despise you. I have my own life and my own plans and everything like that. Why would I do that? And I said, because it would be funny. And he said, oh yeah, true. That's true. And then he did it. That gave me a really good outside perspective as to if Undertale actually means this much now, and how the ideals of Undertale and the message of Undertale actually resonates with somebody who had never been around in that community when it was first coming out. So when I'm sitting here at this desk right here, the desk that I streamed Undertale on, I'm going to be talking about our time playing the game and showing little snippets of us playing the game and talking about what he thought and why I think that what he had to say was pretty important. So my growing thesis for this game is this. Undertale is a game that juggles the balance between responsibility and empathy. I think no character better kicks off this idea than when you first boot up the game and you're introduced to Toriel, a kindly mother goat who just saved you from this weird flower thing. We don't really, not very important, don't really need to talk about that. She guides you through the puzzles. She hands you your first cell phone. She bakes you butterscotch pie. And it can be very, very obvious that she cares deeply about your safety. It's later revealed through a series of context clues and some conversations that Toriel was once the queen of the underground, the wife of the king ASGORE. But once ASGORE began killing humans that would fall down to the underground, she grew disgusted with him and left to the ruins, knowing full well that anybody who dares try and traverse the underground would soon meet the tragic end of their life. So, of course, she's going to do everything in her power to make sure that doesn't happen. Being a widow and being a mom and being all of those things and being a queen, she has an obligation to protect the people that she seems vulnerable. That's her entire character you see throughout the entire game. Even the beginning tutorial parts, get it, tutorial, are littered with opportunities for her to just handhold you through the entire freaking game. And it's not until the end of your time in the ruins when Toriel finally decides to let go. It's when you show that you have the strength to be able to love unconditionally and spare her even after she levels fireball after fireball at you, telling you, do not go, you're going to die, that she finally relents. Because her empathy demands it of her. Her care for you makes her realize that in order for you to be happy and to be content, she has to let you go. Even if she knows or believes that doing so would lead to your inevitable death. So what is Toriel in this game trying to tell us? Well, it's really the thing that kicks off your entire adventure as a whole. Her involvement shows that these monsters are actually very kind, despite the fact that the freaking little flower gremlin, we don't really need to freaking, not very important, tried to kill you. Other monsters are able to be reasoned with in a way that not a whole lot of RPGs really try and tackle. Sure, you can end up fighting a monster in another RPG and then later be its friend, but this game focuses on you needing to completely negate any idea of fighting from the very beginning. And Toriel guides you through that process, no matter how suffocating it can be. When we booted up the game, Drew was not having any expectations at all for it. His background is mainly stuff like first-person shooters and a lot of stuff that's like take over the world and build your own empires and conquer things type games. Not really RPG bullet hell type games like Undertale is. I honestly didn't know if he would jive at all with how this game would start or how it would go. And frankly, the entire ruins bit was probably the slowest part of the game and the most dredging part of the game for him, at least when I talked to him about it. And it's very clear when you look back on the streams that he just was not having a good time, which definitely makes sense. We're talking about Toriel right now, and one of the big things about Toriel is that she handholds you through the very beginning of the game. Drew, being somebody who's very inundated in the gaming community, does not like being handholded. He likes figuring things out, like a lot of gamers do. So, having that thrown in, you're like, oh, brother. But the big thing with this segment of the game was the frustration that came from learning how the game works, especially the random encounters. The random encounters are so frequent at the beginning of this game that it actually slowed us down and got us really frustrated, when the best parts about this game are the character moments and the lovely music and the sound design and the art style. Having just a purple background with just so many frequent random encounters made it actually frustrating and sort of a drudge to get through. I was nervous that he was going to be like, I don't want to finish streaming this game. But luckily, we were able to continue on forward because of my pressing and his total willingness to just keep on going. So hey, congrats, you got out of the ruins. It's a lot less purple out here. It's actually very snowy and very icy, which is weird because you are still underground. You're under a mountain. So how could this be? Extend your imagination. You literally have boss monsters and stuff here. Anything can happen. So you scour this forest for a little bit, and the first person that you meet is this guy named Sans. And we're going to talk about him later because the second person that you meet is a skeleton named Papyrus. Papyrus is funny. He's wacky, he's crazy. Think of your stereotypical Skeletor type. He goes, man, oh, hello, I want to be a member of the Royal Guard. And he does so using cunning tricks, or at least he thinks it's cunning. He seems to have a very high opinion of himself. This unbridled confidence that he will succeed, despite the fact that he's completely incompetent when it comes to actually catching you throughout this stuff. Every single trick and trap that he tries fails, but as he continues to trick and trap you, he begins to grow admiration for you as the player. Oh, you must love puzzles. You seem to like the spaghetti that I make. Maybe this human that I'm so focused on capturing to become a member of the Royal Guard, maybe that human is more valuable than the status that I'm trying to go for. And this all culminates in this conflict that he has in the battle that you have with him. He's talking about how he has complex feelings about how this is all going down, that you seem to relate to each other more than he thought, that his conception of humans as a whole was not what it was at all. And as that begins to happen, he realizes that he cares about your friendship more than he cares about the title now. And that's when he finally lets you spare him. I love Papyrus as a character. He's so fun. He doesn't have a ton of layers to him, at least not any that are explicitly put out in this run through of the game. But I think that Papyrus is a really good method of quelling a lot of the more serious aspects that this game tries to put out, especially in the back half. You know, having somebody that can ease the tension with a smile or a joke is always very important in one of these games, especially when the other comic reliefs kind of go a little sour later on. With Papyrus, it was very funny because I had to do all of the voices. We had sort of decided that he was going to play the game and I would be the voices, and of course everybody pictures Papyrus as like Skeletor basically, and so I was doing the Skeletor voice and he was dying laughing the whole time, but my voice got freaking destroyed. My voice got absolutely decimated. I love Obama.
Yeah?
I voted for him in 2008. Me, Papyrus. Fame has a steep price. A jealous troll has besieged my online persona, always sending me bad puns in a goofy font. That's you. Because I was going, well, you see, I'm Obama. Oh, hello, my name's Papyrus. Oh, I want to be a member of the Royal Guard. This was the beginning of like the really enjoyable parts of the experience. Like Snowden as a whole was very nice and very cool because there's just so much life and so much charm to every little segment of it that we were able to just sort of stay in Snowden for like 2.5 streams, honestly, just because there was so much to do, so much to see. So what's wrong with taking the back stream? But when it came to Papyrus as a person, I mean, he's supposed to be the joke of the two, which is funny because Sans is also a joke, but for a very different reason, and we'll get to that. And so we had a lot of laughs, but there wasn't really a whole lot of reflection on his character, which makes sense because we weren't really trying to do that. We were just sort of trying to play the game, you know? She's a warrior clad in iron armor. Your first interaction with her isn't actually an interaction. It's murmurs throughout the town saying, well, that Undyne, she's super powerful and she is going to free us. There's no hesitation from these people. They know her strength. so that any opportunity that she gets, she will take it if it means to save the people in the underground. In any other game, she would be the hero. Any other game. But this game's Undertale, and so she's not. This game's a lot about perspective, if you can't tell. Has their own complex feelings, their own complex experiences, their own complex goals. And there's no black or white in this sea of gray. When you fight Undyne, she changes your hit bar so that your heart is green. This means that now you have to face the attacks head on and block them as opposed to dodging like the rest of this game. It's very, very reflective of how Undyne is as a character as a whole. Because Undyne is all about rushing in forward. She does not hesitate, she does not stop, she is ready to go at any moment's notice. And the entire segment of the underground is a reflection of that. You are actively running away from Undyne the entire waterfall segment. And then when you get to her fight, there's no way for you to actually beat her. You have to continue running away. And running away. And running away. Until you get to Hotland, where her armor heats up and betrays her. And the power and the presence that she holds actually leads to her, ironically, not being able to beat you. See, it was the attacks and the violence that she sought after that caused her to lose to you. Not any action that you did. It was her. It was her decisions that caused her to lose. And it's that same competitive, fiery nature that gets you to eventually become friends with her in this game. You cook spaghetti and drink tea with her and have conversations, not because you made an effort to, but because she couldn't back down from a challenge by Papyrus to be your friend. And so she does. She ends up being your friend. And through that, the empathy that she feels for you contrasts any obligation she has to her country and to her service and to her overarching goals. Because it's the love that she has for her friends that is more important than any of that. And I think that that goes sincerely overlooked when it comes to all of these other games and all these other characters. All of the characters in this game have super complex backstories and backgrounds and reasonings for what they do, but it seems as though Undyne goes under the radar, despite the fact that she's one of the loudest voices in the game. I can't really say a whole lot about what Drew thought about Undyne, but what I can say is that Waterfall as a whole was a trip. Again, for somebody who had been so inundated in the community, I was like, oh, well, Waterfall is probably the most like mid-segment of the entire place. Like Hotland, you got the crazy puzzles. Snowden, you got a lot of character charm. Waterfall's just sort of there. But I forgot about Temmie Village. I gotta tell you, I forgot about Temmie Village, and that was probably the best part of our playthrough. You got that dog residues! I gotta have the dog residues, but I gotta pay for calling! Whoa! You got the dog residues! Oh, I gotta have that dog residue, but I gotta pay for calling! This game. Whoa! You got the dog residue? Oh, I gotta have the dog residue, but I gotta pay for calling! Chat, I want you to know. You think he is making a bit. He's not. He's going to sit here the entire time. Whoa! I gotta get that dog residue, but I gotta pay for calling.
I gotta pay for her calling,
I'm gonna sit there every time. She has the money. Whoa! You got dog residue.
Tim didn't qualify for federal. She missed the deadline.
Tim put in her FAFSA. Did early move-in, bro, today. Are y'all having a good day? I know that I'm having a great. Whoa! You can see in these clips how much I'm ready to kill Drew for making me do the Temmie voice over and over and over. And then he found out that there's an infinite money glitch that can get you to a point where you can just get this really expensive piece of armor and pay for Temmie to go to college. And so we sat in the Temmie village. I'm not joking. For a good hour of our playthrough, of our first playthrough, because we just kept on doing the infinite money glitch, and we just kept on getting stuff for the bit, because I kept on doing a bit, and we kept on driving the bit into the ground, and the stream liked it, Drew liked it, I didn't. I was fine with it, honestly. Like, it was funny, and it was fun, and we were able to talk about all sorts of stuff, and what we thought about the game so far. I really got a lot of insight about what he was thinking about it, but there's so much about the game that I was just ready to show him, and I was just very excited. So on one hand, I'm like, I love that we're having this experience, and then on the other hand, I'm like, dude, come on, let's do this. Which, I mean, I don't want to gatekeep somebody's experience, but I also got a content schedule, so it was an interesting dichotomy, you know what I'm saying? And then you get to Alphys, her giant lab, and her giant crush on Undyne. Just way more obsessed about it than I am even. It's actually insane. She keeps on talking and posting and calling you all about it throughout the rest of this game, about her obsession with these stories and these animes and these mangas and everything like that. And that obsession for TV eventually leads her to create Mettaton, who is basically your primary opposition throughout the rest of this Hotland segment, and when we eventually go into the core. Throughout all of this, things begin to feel weird with Alphys. It seems as though she is able to access the controls for these things a lot easier than you would think. And that's because she absolutely can. This is all orchestrated by her. This is all one big show. She wanted to be the heroine of the story. Except now she's been revealed because her AI has now officially gone rogue. So after a battle with Mettaton, she tries to comfort you and then realizes that it's pointless. She's been lying to you this whole time. What is her words going to mean to you? And so she runs away to hide. And it's not until you reach the ending of this game that you have any opportunity to talk to her again. Before you came down here, before any of this, Alphys, as the royal scientist, had to figure out a way to get Soul to break the barrier. And in order to do that, she had to hurt a lot of people. You go through her true lab in the post-game, and it's rough. There's a particular fight where you have to fight this amalgamation of another boss monster, the Snowdrake, his mom. You have to fight her. This Snowdrake is just limping attacks at you that you can easily dodge. It's so tired. It's hurting. It's in pain. The music has slowed down to a crawl. And you realize that this is horrific. And whoever is responsible could not be able to live with themselves. And that was Alphys. And so, of course, she's this insecure and so nervous. But now you, the player, have given her the friends to pick her up when she's down. And so maybe she can finally start healing again. We don't see this healing all the way through, but we begin to see little bits and pieces of the progression that she's making by the time this game ends. And that's wholesome. That's really wholesome. And I think that gets offset sometimes by how annoying she can be in the actual game. Drew was not a fan of Alphys. Of course, I'm recording this part before we do the post-game stuff with the underground layers, so that might have changed. But throughout the entire Hotland segment, he was just annoyed with her, which makes sense. She's annoying. She's a socially awkward nerd. And that's all you know about Alphys. It's not until you get to the post-game stuff that it becomes different, you know? That you get more insight into her backstory. And so that makes sense that he would be so annoyed with it. Drew was having a lot of fun with it, except for this one puzzle that took him 40 minutes. But eventually he solved the puzzle, and we were able to keep on going. And I've never seen somebody so relieved. Anybody who's actually sat down and played Undertale will be able to tell you that Hotland and the core is where the difficulty really starts to ramp up when it comes to character interactions. There were times where random character events, not even like boss fights or anything, were becoming really challenging. And Drew was actually dying several times. But what ended up happening was that Drew was forced to learn over and over and over. And it's not learning in the same hand-holdy way that Toriel was. It's playing the game and actually learning the mechanisms and learning how to better interact with the game. The difficulty curve for Undertale really ramps up, especially in the core. And when we got there, it was a nightmare. There was this one long bridge with all of these different boss fights. Well, not even boss fights, they're just random mobs that would come and attack. And I could tell that he was getting frustrated because we kept on dying. Well, he kept on dying. But what ended up happening was he was learning. He was learning the attack patterns. He was learning how to end battles quicker, doing all of that. And what I realized was this is when the gameplay actually becomes interesting. The gameplay is probably the weakest part of Undertale, at least in my opinion. The strongest part is the character interactions, and that's why I'm spending so much time on character analysis in this video. But when you get to the back half of this game, that's when the gameplay really starts to ramp up and really starts to get interesting. There's so many different styles that it works with, so many different tools and tricks and things you gotta learn, and I could tell that it was becoming more and more fun to play the game for Drew and for me watching him play the game. There were times where I was just dead silent. I was focused on doing character voices for most of our streams, but there were times that I was just completely silent because I was just so engrossed in him figuring out the game. And he was also very engrossed in him actually trying to beat the game. Hotland and the core is when, even though the character stuff may have frustrated him a little bit more, the gaming part was really, really strong. And I think that's important to note. If you have perused anything about Undertale, you have seen fan art of Sans. You have seen discourse about Sans, you have seen animations about Sans, you have seen custom boss fights, music, all of this type of stuff, specifically only about Sans. And that's because Sans has so many layers to him based on fan interaction, fan theory, and then you get to the game and you're very confused as to how he got so big. Especially your first playthrough. Sans starts out as this jokester, this little wacky little fella, man. Just telling jokes, bad skeleton puns, and immediately when he does that, it's like, oh my gosh, I love this guy. I would literally die for him. And then as the game progresses, you realize that Sans knows a lot more than he's leading on. He's asking you about talking flowers. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's probably not super important. He's talking to you about choices, the choices he's made. He talks to you about the promise he's made to Toriel. And at the final moments of the game, when you were saving Sans for the last time, he begins to keep on saying the same stuff. Just give up. I did. What's the point even? You're not going to be able to make it out. And when you first play the game, when he says that, it's very confusing because he's been very chill and relaxed this entire game. So why is he saying this type of stuff? But it's only when you play the game multiple times that you realize Sans has deep regrets about all of the things that he's had to see. So he will make offhanded comments about, hey, you seem to be a little torn up, or maybe even say, hey, I know a shortcut. and the shortcut is breaking the game's code and just teleporting you to a certain place. But at the end of the day, it's because of the fact that he is somehow intertwined with this game and you can't seem to figure it out. There's no clear-cut answer as to why. People have their theories online, and that's where the theory crafting comes in, but the game leaves it very ambiguous because you don't need to know why. You just need to know that he has given up. And it's not until you, the player, have the empathy to talk to him and resonate with him and eat with him and speak with him that he begins to have a little bit of hope back. Just a little. But that's all you really need, isn't it? Man, I freaking love this game, bro. I freaking love it. It's freaking awesome, dude. If you have perused anything about Undertale, you have seen fan art of Sans. You have seen discourse about Sans. You have seen animations about Sans. You have seen custom boss fights, music, all of this type of stuff, specifically only about Sans. And that's because Sans has so many layers to him based on fan interaction, fan theory, and then you get to the game and you're very confused as to how he got so big. Especially your first playthrough. Sans starts out as this jokester, this little wacky little fella, man. Just telling jokes, bad skeleton puns, and immediately when he does that, it's like, oh my gosh, I love this guy. I would literally die for him. And then as the game progresses, you realize that Sans knows a lot more than he's leading on. He's asking you about talking flowers. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's probably not super important. He's talking to you about choices, the choices he's made. He talks to you about the promise he's made to Toriel. And at the final moments of the game, when you were saving Sans for the last time, he begins to keep on saying the same stuff. Just give up. I did. What's the point even? You're not going to be able to make it out. And when you first play the game, when he says that, it's very confusing because he's been very chill and relaxed this entire game. So why is he saying this type of stuff? But it's only when you play the game multiple times that you realize Sans has deep regrets about all of the things that he's had to see. So he will make offhanded comments about, hey, you seem to be a little torn up, or maybe even to say, hey, I know a shortcut, and the shortcut is breaking the game's code and just teleporting you to a certain place. But at the end of the day, it's because of the fact that he is somehow intertwined with this game and you can't seem to figure it out. There's no clear-cut answer as to why. People have their theories online, and that's where the theory crafting comes in, but the game leaves it very ambiguous because you don't need to know why. You just need to know that he has given up. And it's not until you, the player, have the empathy to talk to him and resonate with him and eat with him and speak with him that he begins to have a little bit of hope back. Just a little. But that's all you really need, isn't it? Man, I freaking love this game, bro. I freaking love it. It's freaking awesome, dude. So, you've beaten Metaton. Alphys has run away. This entire time, you have been warned of the king of monsters, the big bad, ASGORE Dreamer, the one that the people seem to adore, but you have been told outright since the start that he intends to kill you when he sees you. It is your destiny to fight him. You have to peruse this open landscape leading up to the final castle in the throne room. And after you walk for a little bit, you begin to reach a place that looks very familiar. It looks like Toriel's house. And as you enter, you walk through the halls, these empty halls, and monsters tell you of a tragic story. One where Asgore's son becomes friends, brothers even, with a fallen human who is loved unconditionally by his family until he tragically dies of sickness. When he does that, the son, Azrael, goes up to the human surface to bury him one final time and is chastised and hoarded after and rioted at by the humans that he comes across. But he smiles the entire time as he walks away until he arrives home and falls in a bed of flowers, dead. It's tragic. It's tragic for the kingdom, for you listening to it, but more pressingly, it is tragic to hear when you think about Asgore. Asgore fights you, not because of any responsibility he has to his pride, to his ego, even to his goal of freeing the underground. He fights because his son, both of his sons, died. He has a responsibility to his grief, so that the loss that he feels isn't worth nothing. That's why he fights. And that's why you are destined to fight him. Not because of anything you did, not because he is evil, but because he has to. And so he does. And you fight. I'll tell you what, I think Drew really liked Asgore. When we interacted with him, he was pretty freaking emotional because he put two and two together about his relationship to Toriel and how Toriel's the queen. But B, he just realized that this guy is just a reluctant king. He doesn't want to be doing this. And yet, he's probably one of the most badass confrontations you have in the game. A strange light fills the room. Twilight is shining through the barrier. It seems your journey is finally over. You're filled with determination. Human, it was nice to meet you. Goodbye. Good luck.
So what do I do?
The very beginning of the fight, he's just all kind and smiles and all that type of stuff. He's watering flowers and all that. And then he pulls out the Triton and takes down your mercy option. And when that happened for the first time, Drew was freaking so confused. I want to reiterate that I went into this telling Drew that I was not going to give him hints, and that I just wanted to see how he would approach this game. And for I believe the first 3 run-throughs, he was just confused as to how to go about it, because being told that you cannot fight for the entire game, he's like, well, fight isn't even an option, so what do I do? And so I had to tell him, yes, you have to fight Asgore. And he was like so hesitant about it. He's like, I don't want to derail this. I don't want to derail this. Please, Connor, we've come so far. I don't want to fight him. I don't want to fight him. And that's the reaction of everybody. They're always so reluctant to actually fight the guy, because the entire game you haven't fought anybody. You've been able to resolve stuff peacefully through talking. But when somebody is so connected to the responsibility of grief for their son, for their family, for all the things they lost, and the responsibility to their government and all that type of stuff, those feelings are so complex that you can't talk your way out of that. You have to fight, and you have to bring them down. And so he did. Drew brought him down, and then he was given the option to fight and mercy. And obviously he chose mercy, because we were doing a pacifist run. And this was this whole cheesy monologue, and he's rolling his eyes at how dumb it is. And then the twist comes. As long as you remain here, my wife and I will take care of you as best we can. We can sit in the living room, telling stories.
I regret it now. I regret seeing him.
Eating butterscotch
Oh
pie.
God!
We could be like...
I have one request. Destroy Alphys.
like a family.
What just happened? What the?
You idiot! You haven't learned a thing! In this world, it's kill or be killed!
What?
I don't need to tell you about Undertale. If you were on the internet at all like me in 2015, you know full well about this game. You know about how the characters gripped people, how the music absolutely shattered people's minds and is used in video essays like this all of the time. So I don't need to tell you that Undertale is a good game. But what I do want to focus on is why it has such a profound effect on so many people. And there's a couple of big things to talk about when we talk about this. And I think the big ones are the malleable characters, the actual gameplay, and the meaningful message that it ends up giving you by the end. And I think that those three things create an experience that almost demands emotion. And people love a story that demands emotion. And so we'll talk about it. Hey, if you like this type of video, hey, please do subscribe. I really do appreciate all of the support that I've been getting. I'm trying to hit 150 subscribers by the end of July, and I think we can do it, gang. I really do. So if you enjoy this type of stuff, you enjoy video essays, you enjoy personality-based stuff, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Let's talk about Robin Hood. So Robin Hood is one of the most influential characters in Western history of all time. He's in that same upper echelon of like medieval heroes as like King Arthur and Lancelot and Mordred and all of those characters, but also conveniently in a completely different time. Robin Hood works so well and is so influential. But if I were to ask you to tell me your favorite Robin Hood stories, unless you were like an English major, you wouldn't be able to tell me. You might be able to say, oh, I like the Disney movie. What was the Disney movie about? You might be able to say, oh, I like that live action one. What was it about? What's the plot? And as you think about it, you realize that it's not the plot that matters at all. It's not. It's how the characters react to the situations that they're being put in front of it, and how malleable these characters are. Robin Hood, dashing folk hero that is chaotic good and has a moral code. You have the Friar. You have Little John, who's a huge guy named Little John. It's funny. You have all of these malleable characters that you can put in almost any situation. It's a writer's dream. It's a storyteller's dream. You can put these guys anywhere and they'll work. And it's the same thing with Undertale. I don't need to tell you that the internet freaking loves this game. But if you think about it, the internet loves this game so much because of the characters, much less the art style or the gameplay or anything like that. Because the characters have so much depth and complexity to them that you can put them anywhere and they'll succeed, such as the reality of alternate universes. And when you have something like that, the internet absolutely feasts. To show you the impact that the internet has, I had my friend Sean put together a collection, a sort of museum exhibit of Undertale fan art from DeviantArt, from 4chan, from all sorts of different social media websites. Okay, the first one is like this really nice picture of Papyrus. Like, it's actually like a really like super freaking well designed one. He looks actually kind of sinister, but like the color choicing and all that type of stuff is like really, really awesome. Like, it makes him look super cool. That's freaking sick. That's amazing. Oh, this one's nice. It's the whole collection of the gang's all here, man. The gang's all here. Okay, that's just Peter Griffin. That's not fan art. That's just Peter Griffin. I don't know why you put that in there. It says Sans Undertale and then it put Peter Griffin. That's just not. It's not even real. It's not real. Why would it be there? I don't understand. Oh, this is a cool little fight scene type thing where like they're all charging into battle. Again, really solid artwork because these artists actually really care about what they're doing. It's really nice. Oh, so this is an alternate universe, an AU. There's a lot of AUs that the fan communities have put together for Undertale, and this one, Sans, is a cop. Oh, this is Patriot Sans. This is my favorite AU. This is the one where he was at the Capitol on January 6th. It's actually kind of wholesome. Okay, there's layers to this one. It's Sans and Papyrus, I can gather. They're kissing, kind of incest, I'll say it. Like they're brothers. This is incest, is what this is. This one says, "Do you dare go deeper?" Oh, and the child is kissing a flower. Oh, again, it's a child. It's a child. Okay, now the child is approaching him. Oh boy, oh, we love to, oh man. That's the entire ribcage, isn't it? That's the entire skeleton. That's the pelvis right there. Why is it glowing? Why is it glowing? Oh, and Sans and Papyrus kissing again. Oh, okay, that's incest, but that's normal at this point, you know. Oh, yep, that's just a vor. Oh, why is, okay, they're burping. More of, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So Undertale had a big impact on the internet, and its fan community is really, really, really crazy, especially when it was first coming out. I didn't need to see any of that. I didn't. Yeah, I don't need to talk about the characters anymore. I'm not going to talk about the internet anymore. I don't need to. I don't need to. I don't want to. I don't need that in my life. I honestly don't. I could live without it, honestly. But the game execution is absolutely phenomenal. Let's talk about the soundtrack first, because that's the thing that everybody seems to love. There's a reason why so many people seem to love this game, and the soundtrack's a huge reason for it. The ideas that are put forth in this soundtrack are some of the most profound ideas and reflections of storytelling. You can almost tell the entire story if you know theory and you listen to the soundtrack enough. Example, when you fight Toriel, the song that plays is called Heartache, and it sounds like this. And then you fast forward to the end of the game, and you're fighting ASGORE, and it gets to the part in his song called ASGORE. It sounds like this. You don't need to know a whole lot of theory to know that those two are connected in some way, some very important way. But it's not just that. It's the actual way the gameplay works. Yes, it is a turn-based bullet hell game that might not work for everybody, but it's the difficulty heightening and the puzzle solving that really gets you. We talked about this a little bit, but it's the spike that ends up happening and you having to learn from it that prepares you for the insanity that happens at the end of this game. You cannot fight ASGORE or Sans if you choose the genocide route without going through the rest of this game. You simply could not. It's absolutely impossible. And then when you get to those fights, it's insane and insanely difficult. And then the twist comes.
What just happened? What the?
You idiot! I've hesitated talking about him, but you almost have to talk about the third and most important reason why this game affects people. So let's talk about Flowey. Flowey is the first thing that you see in this game. I'm not going to call him a monster, because he's not. He's a flower. And he's been imbued with soul energy and been given life. And the question you must ask yourself is, what happens when something that doesn't have a soul gains the will to live? And so you have Flowey, with the same riddled understanding that Sans has about the timeline and resetting and the knowledge that games are real and that they are in a game, but taken in a completely different direction. And that takes on a completely different meaning when you understand that Flowey is Azrael, the dead son of Asgore and Toriel. When Azrael died, he fell into a large bed of flowers, and then one of those flowers was picked by Alphys and injected into with determination. So now it has the monster's soul energy in a vessel that can hold on to it in a meaningful way. So the mixture of all of these things becomes Flowey. And so Flowey is able to take all of the human souls that have been collected and become this huge abomination, this absolute horrible thing that is only capped off when the twist happens, when Asgore dies. He becomes this photorealistic monster atrocity that has the most insane moveset and one that you can barely fight. You're dealing 1 damage to this person every time that you fight. But then something begins to shift, because through your love and empathy and your desire for help, the souls that Flowey has trapped break out of their hiding and break out of their constrictions and decide to help you. It is you openly rebelling against Flowey through the power of empathy and love that you've been holding on to this entire game. It is not a, well, I've changed my mind about stuff like that. Flowey is not changing. It's very clear that he's not changing. He even says that when you are 1 step away from actually killing him. He says he hasn't learned anything and he's going to do it. But it's your choice to show him mercy, to show him love and compassion that makes everything else in this game happen. So you go back, you help Alphys, you show her what it means to love, and then when you go through all of that, you have to face Asgore again, except this time all of your friends are there, because the power of the connection that humans can bring and the love that humans have for each other offsets any responsibility or obligation that they have. So every monster in the underground comes to support you. Of course, now he has every soul of every monster, 6 human souls, and so now he can become his true form. One that actually is able to care. And when he's able to care, he no longer just wants to destroy everything. No longer he wants to kill or be killed. He just wants everything to end and start over. And so you fight Azrael Dreamer. Except you don't fight him, you dodge his attacks, and then you end up saving your friends from him. And then you are given the opportunity to save him. The one that has been tormenting you this entire game. One that just got the ability to feel love. And so you do, and you do, and you do, and you realize that the entire time, this was just a kid trying to figure out what was best. Not because of any power or conniving tricks or anything like that. Just because of the invaluable force that human connections bring. That is the message of Undertale. Don't cry at media. It's funny because this entire channel is devoted to how much I love stories, but I don't ever have like a physical response to a story. I've gotten uncomfortable at Joker, and I've maybe felt some cheesy happiness when watching Disney Channel original movies. Undertale is one of, if not the only, that I can think of off the top of my head, pieces of media that has genuinely made me cry. And that's why. You might call it sickeningly sweet, you might call it wholesome, you might call it, maybe it was just you being a kid. But I think that it was something more. I think this game is special, and I think a lot of the internet agrees. And I think my friend Drew agreed too. For being along with this journey.
Excuse you, Frisk.
Oh yeah, of course, sorry. Thank you, Frisk.
For me, it was about growing with the characters.
Mm-hmm.
It was really just like getting to know Sans, Papyrus. I was about to say Joji, but Joji is not a character. Undyne, Toriel at the beginning, I didn't really understand her. Mm-hmm. And then as things went on, I understand that. I remember the throne rooms.
Yeah.
When we got to the throne room, I was like, no. Mm-hmm. Toriel's the queen, yeah.
Yeah, anything else you want to say?
This is good.
All right. Thanks for watching.